Damas y caballeros, leave it in the ring.
And welcome back to another edition of Leave It in the Ring Radio. I'm your host, Dave Duenas, with my co-host, Gabriel Montoya, and the man behind the switchboard, Mr. David Chen. Mr. Spencer, we got Lamont Peterson that's coming on right now. He is in training camp, getting ready for Hall, and he's been out for a minute. We'll find out a little bit more, get his take and his part of why, what happened with the Vada testing, but then we're going to roll in about his upcoming fight and seeing him back in the 2013 year. Man, long time no speak to, man. How you been?
Well, I've been good, man. How you been doing?
Doing really good, really good. It's good to hear that you're back in the ring, getting your training done, and you're going to be back into a big fight. The Timothy Bradley fight, obviously, the rematch didn't fall through. Let me ask you a little bit before we start rolling into the other stuff. Lamont, with Timothy Bradley, what do you think happened there? And when he turned down the fight, he wasn't intrigued by it, which I heard that he was, but then something just fell apart. What did that do for you, man? I mean, did you think that this was just going to start off to be a bumpy year for you, or what?
Nah, I was just hoping that the opportunity, did happen, but, things happen in boxing. A lot of times you never find out the reason why, but things happen, and you just move on, and you keep moving and keep going ahead.
Do you think that fight with Timothy Bradley would have been the breaking point for you? I mean, you were out for some time. It was out of your hands. You had the whole Vada testing. Do you think that the Timothy Bradley fight was the right fight for you to get back in the eyes of the fight fans?
I was just, anxious to fight. And at the end of the day, I always look at it like this. And Timothy Bradley will fight again. And, whether it's now or later, and I was just hoping that it was now, but it seemed like it's going to be later.
I want to pass it over to my co-host, Gabriel Montoya. Go ahead, brother.
Lamont, thank you for coming on, man. It's been a long time, and I think the last time we talked was I think last March at the press conference here in Los Angeles when you announced the Peterson rematch. Talk to me about how you feel after all this that you've gone through. We don't need to go step by step and do the Oprah Armstrong interview, but I'm just curious, where you feel you're at and how you're dealing with public perception. What do you think that is after all this time? I mean, looking back over the year.
There's no problems with me. People gonna always look at things the way they want to look at things. Whether, I tested positive or not, if someone puts it in their head that, I'm a certain way, then to them, I'm going to be a certain way. And there's nothing I can do about it. So at this point, like I've been saying, I told my story, I told my part. If people believe me or not, I can care less at that point because I can't control it. So I just move on with my career.
I never did a one-on-one, but I read your one-on-one with Lem and other ones that you did, and I talked with Barry and your team extensively. What I got out of your story was a guy maybe that was overtrained and was certainly misdiagnosed, at least in my opinion, misdiagnosed with low T. And that was really all it was. It wasn't a guy going with a mustache and you're twirling it going, I'm going to cheat and get over. Am I correct? Do you think ultimately, did you find what was wrong with you health-wise? Do you think you were misdiagnosed and that maybe if you'd have gone a little further and gotten more information, that you wouldn't have gone down the road that you did?
I wouldn't say I was misdiagnosed because even after, the fight and after the procedure, it was, they still went back down to being low. So,
interesting. Okay.
That's just a problem that I have to deal with. It was the problem was it wasn't like I need to take this because my testosterone is low and so it can make me stronger or anything like that. It was for health reasons because at the end of the day I look at it like this. I've been fighting with if that's the case and it's low and it's always been low, I still been fighting on the top level anyway. So that was not a concern for me. But my health is. You know, at this point, if they say it's something wrong with my brain, forget boxing. I'm done boxing.
Right.
So when, you know, I start doing research and start hearing about the things that can happen, the things that it can cause, being this young with, you know, low testosterone, then, of course, I have to make a decision and do what I have to do for my health. And that's all that, you know, I did.
Going forward, I guess, you know, one of the things in, like, Nevada, and you haven't gone and done your licensing hearing, I don't know, have you worked things out with them? And if so, are you going to get, like, a therapeutic use exemption for the use of testosterone? If that's your issue, that your T is, you know, your testosterone, your T level is out of balance.
At this point, it's no need to get an exemption to do anything because, like I said, after the procedure, my testosterone went back down. So it has to be from something else. We're still trying to figure that out. I'm still constantly, you know, monitoring that, constantly getting blood work done to figure out when is it low, when is it high, because sometimes it's normal.
This is not even a question of performance. This is a question of health, right?
Right. This is a question of health, and that's what, you know, at this point, what we still trying to figure out. But, you know, we tried one procedure, it didn't work. So it's no need to get an exemption form to get another one because it didn't really work. You know, it was supposed to bring my levels to normal and keep it there, and it didn't. So at this point, it really, you know, that I really don't know. I'm just going to continue to fight on, and the way I always do, I can, you know, it did nothing. The procedure really did nothing for me, and we'll try to figure this thing out and go from there.
And my last
as far
thing,
as fighting in Vegas, you know, I'm pretty sure I'll get a license in Vegas when I need to. A lot of times when we were, you know, the hearing thing that was about to go on there, they was really asking us, why do we even need to come out? So, you know.
What do you mean?
Like,
what do you mean they were asking you guys?
The fight was off already.
Yeah, it's not like they called for the hearing.
Gotcha.
We was asking for the hearing. So they was, you know, at that point it was like, what is the need for me even coming out there?
And to clarify for people,
when we start thinking about it like that, like, you know what, they might be right.
And also, you know, to clarify for people that may not know this, one of your legal team couldn't be there, as I understood it, on the day that you were going to do your hearing, and that was actually the initial reason why you guys pulled out. That's what I was told.
Oh, yeah, the first time, you know, it was the schedule, then we rescheduled it, and then they was, you know, still kind of like, you know, what was the purpose?
Gotcha.
And then, you know, things just went from there, just, you know, kind of like just fell downhill from there.
Let me ask you this, and we'll try to get to, you know, the boxing stuff, because you're a fighter, and I like talking to you about fighting. Golden Boy is really one of the pioneers of this, of drug testing in the sport, or using an independent source to drug test.
And they were taking a lot of shots at you too.
They mainly take, well, they do USADA testing. I'm just curious if you're gonna. They did take a lot of shots at you. I'm curious about how you feel about that. But my question is, are you going to continue to do an independent drug testing, and is it going to be USADA?
The way I feel right now is I'll continue to do drug testing. You know, of course, drug testing is not cheap. So with this fight, I don't, you know, we're not going to do random drug testing because, like I said, it's not cheap, and this fight is pretty much not generating that much money to be doing so.
Right.
Sure.
But you know, the fights in the future, if they're bigger fights, then you can guarantee that I'm going to do drug testing. And at this point, for my option, you know, the way I look at it, and you just got to look at it for what it is, the way it is, Vada seems like they're the better company when it comes to drug testing. So that's what I'm going to want to do.
Wow, that's great. That's great to hear. Lamont, let me ask you. Okay, so you signed with Golden Boy. What made you go in that direction? You know, because when the whole testing thing was about, I mean, they took some major shots at you, and you know. The thinking would be that you wouldn't want to go with them as a promoter. You would have went with somebody else. But your decision was to go with them, which I don't think it was a bad decision. I think it was actually a really great decision. But tell me a little bit, why did you decide to lean towards Golden Boy?
I'm gonna tell you this. All the things that were said roll right off my shoulder. I mean, it was no problem with me because at the end of the day, you gotta look at it like this. This is business. You know, I beat their fighter. You know, they thought it was some foul play. They're going to protect their fighter as best they can. So I just looked at it as they're protecting their fighter. And they was doing whatever they needed to do for their fighter. And that's all I can look at it as.
Now that you're their fighter, you know, now you're part of their team. What is in store? What is some of the communications between yourself with your team and the Golden Boy of where they're going to move you forward to if you're successful with Holt?
You know, if I'm successful February 22nd, of course, we're trying to make the biggest fights that, you know, we can make. And, you know, right now in my weight class and the weight class above me, you know, Golden Boy had a stacked stable right now. And, you know, the top junior welterweights out there. So right now, you know, we just want to fight the best fighters out there. You have Danny Garcia, you still have the Khan rematch that people want to see, and you have Matisse, and if I decide to move up, they got plenty of 147 pounders too. So I know that at this point, if I'm taking care of my business in the ring, starting February 22nd, you know, I can always look forward to, you know, bigger fights.
And there's a lot of
part of the reason what
right.
signing with them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great fights, man, for you out there. Hey, really quick, because I saw this dude at a solo book sale fight, and I got to ask you, who was the man in that hat, man, that everybody was just kind of clamoring over, and there was so much suspicion? Do you know who that dude was, dude? Because that was like one of the funniest things about the DC fight against Khan.
Do not know him. I saw him once in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like you know, I'm a respectful person. If I see somebody in there around a little bit, I'll speak. That was it. It didn't go past, hey, how you doing? That was it. Only thing I ever said to him. Only time I ever seen him.
There you go, Gary.
Did you notice him while you were during the fight at all, or were you too busy hitting Mir Khan?
No, you don't worry about things like that. No, definitely don't. Focus on somebody that you don't really know in a crowd.
Let me ask you something, and this is kind of a tough question, but it's something that's kind of bothered me, and this is actually not really so much on you as it is on the DC Commission, and they didn't really call me back. But you basically, you know, through all this, and it's why I've always kind of felt that you didn't do foul play, that you were a guy that was kind of following the advice of doctors and went, wait a minute, you probably should have had more information. I think you should have, but it's not like you're alone in that. A lot of people should have more information. But that you basically said you had a banned substance in you, in this testosterone, during a title fight. And DC, have they said anything to you? Or are they going to discipline you? Or you guys, it was all kind of like a learning experience and we're all just moving forward?
Well, they haven't contacted me at all. You know, they
and you passed the drug test, for full disclosure.
Right, and they went to their drug testing, and they looked over it, and the things that they test for, you know, I passed. So at that point, what else could they do?
Yeah.
Sure. I guess chalk it up to learning experience, and we move on. I'm sorry to go back after we've kind of moved forward from that. I just remembered the question. Okay, in front of you, you've got a dangerous fighter. And you've got something even more dangerous. You've got rust from time out of the ring. What do you consider more dangerous heading into this fight? Kendall Holt, the pressure on you to perform up to a certain level, or just fighting the rust?
There's no pressure at this point. The way I'm looking at it is, look, I love to fight. I'm about to fight. Win, lose, or draw, I'm about to go out here and do something I love to do. That's it.
Did you think at one point you were going to be able to get back into the ring?
I always knew I would get back in the ring. That was, you know, I never doubted that. I didn't know how long it was going to take. You know, sometimes it seemed like it was going to be sooner than later. And then sometimes it seemed like it was going to be later than sooner. So it was, you know, up and down for me. And, you know, just throwing me for loops all over the place, but I knew eventually one day I'll get back in the ring.
Kendall Holt's always been known to have that right hand. He's got that power. And we've had you on numerous times. We've had you on a round table, and just like Barry, you're able to pick apart fighters, and you're able to, pick the weakness and strengths. What is it about Kendall Holt that you see that's weak, and what is the strength about him that you have to worry about, and be sure that you're on your game to make sure you're not one of his victims?
Well, really don't want to go into strengths and weakness right now. At the end of the day, we still got to fight, and it's all about strategy at this point. But I'll say this. From what I see, Kendall is a good puncher, both hands, left and right. He has good power, but it's no power that I'm worried about. At the end of the day, I signed up to fight him. So it's boxing. You're going to get hit. I'm not worried about that. A lot of said, about his power, and, people forget. And I'm not saying I'm the strongest man in the world.
Right.
But for a junior welterweight, I can almost say, if we, far as strength, I'm really not talking puncher power, but strength, I don't see none of them being stronger than me, period.
Let me ask you this, because starting off in your career as a pro boxer, and then it kind of changed, because the criticism was that you were just too pure as a boxer. And then we saw that transition. You started to stand, started to trade a little bit more. Being out of the ring, going back and going with your sparring partners and stuff, have you reverted back to your old self, or have you just stayed where you left off?
Well, at this point is depending on, throughout my whole career, amateur, what was the pro, I was always taught to fight multiple ways. So depending on the fight, the fighter that I'm fighting, I'm going to change accordingly. For this fight, of course we want to do a little bit of both, but for the most part, with Kendall, it's really no need to be, moving around, running around, because he's a fighter who likes to take his time. So we kind of playing it to his hands.
What do you look at? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like you said, I'm a thinker, and I like to break stuff down. So while I'm breaking the fighter down and the way I want the fight to go, I have to adjust my style accordingly.
I just got two more questions for you, and I'll let you go, brother. Go back into training camp and stuff. One of them is going to be what do you concentrate and watch mostly with Kendall Hall? Do you watch when his last fight with a knockout, or do you go back and look at his fight with like Danny Garcia? It was a different pace. It was drawn out a little longer. Which one is the most you love, or do you watch both of those fights?
If you're going to watch tape on someone, you want to watch as many tapes as you can, different, the way he deal with different styles and things like that. Because if you just watch one fight, it's hard to pick up habits. Habits are, after you see 3 or 4 fights, things that he did, regardless of what the style is, something that he's going to do.
Right.
And you kind of look for those, not just, oh, he knocked this guy out, yeah, he can punch. No. You look at everything. When he lose, when he win, if he struggled or not, someone putting pressure on him, someone's boxing him. And you kind of just looking at him and looking for things that he consistently do or don't do.
My last question is one of our listeners, Matt Jimenez, is asking, he said, Raymond Serrano, how is he looking in camp?
When he first came, it was, a bit out of shape, and, confidence was, a little down the scene. But, he started to pick everything up towards the end, and I thought he was going to have, a good fight last weekend, but, it just didn't happen that way.
Absolutely. Brother, hey, man, I'm glad to hear you back. I can't wait to see you get back into the ring. We can only wish you all the best, and thanks again for coming on, leaving the ring, and talking to us.
All right, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
You always just, you're such a forthright guy. You really exemplify champion to me. You do. I mean, I really appreciate your honesty and just coming out, and you knew these were going to be tough questions, and you just took it head on. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, no problem, man.
Hey, Lamont, thanks.
All right, no.
Lamont, I'll call you later.
All right,
Hey,
thank
Dave.
you too, man.
Hey, Dave, thank you guys. Hold on a second. I'm still in the gym. You guys want to talk to Barry, or are you all right?
We actually have another guest coming right on. We'll catch Barry on another episode for sure, without question.
All right. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, man.
All right,
Take
later.
care. Good night.
Later.
Good night.
All right.
Lamont Peterson here on Leaving the Ring. If you missed the interview, go ahead. You can catch it on the archive. We had Joel Diaz Jr. We're going to be calling in a few more minutes. We're going to have Jose Hernandez, and then we're going to have Steve Cunningham here on Leaving the Ring with us.
I just hit you with Loco's number, and
Loco.